So I'm going to try to respond really quickly here to Dana, and I really appreciate all of his very thoughtful and direct responses back and questions to me. I think all of this really began when I shot my Why I'm Not an Atheist video. And in that video, I was trying to suggest that I find my own company much easier with atheists than I do with most fundamentalist religious types. And so I'm very comfortable, I guess, hanging out with atheists and other people. I'm sure would call me an atheist. Your average person, especially here in this area that I live in, is very conservative, very Christian area. Um, I don't know how many, I guess Buddhists aren't really generally running around trying to identify who the atheists from who the atheists are not. I think part of the issue, though, I think that's what precipitated this initial exchange between Dana and I. And I think when I took umbrage with this issue of what is my position and the way it was being cast, perhaps by Dana. Now, I don't think it was anything that he was doing when he gave this Russell story. Basically, he was suggesting that I was appealing to some sort of super fantastical whole that is in addition to the parts and the relations between and among the parts. I guess I'm still, I'm kind of there because for me, consciousness is a kind of nothingness. And there really is an ontological problem of nothingness. I think that it exists in language in terms of the don't and the is not, but there's a larger phenomena of which language is made in the image of. And there is, as I've shot many videos here, a kind of a reality of non-being that is negativity exists. And when I say exists, I mean existence in the existential concept of that. Existence means ecstatical temporality, a sort of unfolding along. And for me, this nothing or this negativity is a kind of, I think it has spiritual implications. It has, see, if I say that consciousness is nothing and that's really who I am, if at my core I say I'm a sort of, to use D.E. Harding's, I'm a capacity for world, or I'm the worldhood of the world, or I'm nothing but what I'm not. See, I mean, I think there are so many different ways to come at it that humans are some kind of space making, room making distance that allows the world to haunt itself as another. I guess, and so much of this comes from Hans Jonas's work. I got a big stack of his books over there. Please check out Hans Jonas. The key book that people who I would recommend, if you want to learn more about the kind of perspective that I'm interested in, this is sort of a Judaic mystic position, is by Hans Jonas in his book, The Phenomenon of Life, sort of philosophical biology. I think what Jonas is trying to do is he's looking at phylogenetic scales and trying to identify what is the uniquely human, and from there he comes upon certain aspects about humanity, such as making images and a kind of temporal freedom that humans have, and he calls it, expanding ranges of mediacy that we can find throughout nature. He does somewhat characterize it as, you know, increasing scales of outward range and inward depths, and we can find that going all the way from vegetative and to animal life and up to human life. And I think for Jonas, it's sort of like this. I mean, this would be one, maybe a way to. And this is me putting words into Jonas's mouth via Kierkegaard and Sartre and Heidegger and a lot of the stuff that I've tried to do in various writings, which is a lot of what I'm doing here. I'm just taking little paragraphs and bits and pieces from many writings over the years. But like, if you say something like this, and this is sort of Jonas in a certain way, but in the beginning there was a grand and very special kind of nothing, and then that nothing said no to itself. And in saying no to itself, it blew into all body. And the one, which really wasn't one at all, a sort of nothingness, it somehow was able to create everything but its own face. It just left itself as a body. And it wasn't until the slow development of that body itself into its own ranges of mediation that it was able to, I guess, see, for Jonas, again, you'd have to read Jonas is a wonderful chapter called Immortality in the Modern Temper. Yeah, and it's like, for him, humans weren't made in the image of God. They were made for the image of God. That God left her own face undone, and the only way to see the face of God is through existence. That without humanity, without this layer of mediation, without this capacity to differentiate just the eternally fleeting and evanescent from the sort of eternal, uh, it's like, there really is no face of God. All of the world is a kind of body of God, where the face of God is what we see when we look and we sort of recognize the the harmony and the symmetry, the order all around us. If you look around, why can you not see your own face? Well, you don't need a face. You're everyone's face but your own. And so this is, again, this part of that has to problematize, I think, some of what Jonas's claims are. That as much as I like Jonas, I think he sort of overstates it. He ends up with a wholly transcendent God, and it's not what I'm after. I'm not after a being, no guy in the sky, no doer of deeds, no maker of judgments, no virgin births, no interventions. But all of this, is a kind of cosmic mystery whereby a special kind of nothingness came to haunt itself as another. Um, I guess for me, the issue of sacredness really comes down to a reverence for life. And I don't mean it, when I say there's a sacredness and a reverence to life, I don't mean it in the sense of, this is some subtle anti abortion argument. No, that kind of disgusts me. I think that this is probably volatile here. I'd be a little volatile, but I mean, the Greeks exposed their babies. The ancient Greeks, they thought that a baby wasn't a member of the society until it was accepted as a member in the society. I mean, I'm not advocating that position, but I think the argument that to say that life is sacred is to say that a certain kind of arrangement and order is sacred. Certainly, I'm thinking that minimal, the way to minimize suffering, the way to reduce violence, the way to reduce unnecessary hardship. A lot of that comes from making difficult decisions. Right? A lot of it comes from when I look at all of the problems that are going on here with, people who are on life support. And I don't know. I mean, I want to say that life is sacred, but because life is sacred, that's not why you keep a person on life support. That's maybe why you ask the person, do you have this person answer the question, is your life sacred, or do you want to live like this? I mean, I'm not. See, I think that the question too of giving people the right to choose to die with dignity is so different than telling people that they should die because they're an inconvenience or a burden to the society. The problems of self aware consciousness as it emerged in history, that to me is probably one of the most important issues. I think some of the concerns that I have about spirituality have to do with recognizing something larger than the individual and the possibilities of meaningful action and our kind of debts and obligations given how much we've been given and that we experience ourselves as separate despite all of this being unified. There really is no separate person. The separate person is a kind of nothingness, but it's a nothingness that holds everything. Okay, thanks.